Okay, good evening, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. Welcome to the online consultation briefing for the A457 corridor cycle scheme, which is part of the City Council's Active Travel Fund programme. I'm Andy Chidgey. I'm one of the transport planning managers at the City Council. I also have my colleague Melissa Peck from our consultant Jacobs, who will talk through the scheme plans in a bit of detail. And then I've also got my colleagues Sophie and Alexander, who will be sort of triaging the questions. So if you want to ask any questions, you can do that through the chat feature, and they will appear to us, and we'll do questions at the end. Okay, the first part of the presentation, just talk you through sort of some of the background to the project, and then tell you a little bit as well about other means in which you can engage, make comments if you wish to. So that's the agenda there that we'll be following, if you can see that. So I hope you can see this. So this is a bit of the policy context as to why we are looking at improving cycle facilities on this corridor and across the city. The new Birmingham Transport Plan was published and approved a couple of weeks ago. One of the key principles in that is to prioritise active travel in local neighbourhoods. By active travel, we mean particularly walking and cycling as active travel modes. We were hoping that that will become the first choice for many more journeys, particularly short journeys in local neighbourhoods across the city. We have the Birmingham Walking and Cycling Strategy and the Local Infrastructure Plan, which have very similar sort of objectives around promoting walking and cycling. And we've been working through the sort of pandemic, through the emergency Birmingham Transport Plan, which came out last year, through funding supplied by central government through the Active Travel Fund. Some of the challenges and opportunities. So at the moment, a lot of short journeys are actually made by car. Something like 25% of car journeys are actually less than a mile. So they're ideal trips which could actually be done by walking or cycling. Something like 50% of residents in Birmingham say they would like to cycle more, but there are barriers, including poor cycle facilities in many parts of the cities at the moment. At the moment, only about 1% of employees actually cycle to work in Birmingham. So what sort of issues does that create? Well, something like 900 early adult deaths are linked with air pollution every year, as well as the cost of lost time with people sitting in traffic queues. Bicycles are cycling and walking are the lowest in terms of the emissions that they create, and very efficient in terms of space as well. So from surveys that we've done, 76% of West Midlands residents think that more physically segregated cycle tracks would actually help them and other people to start cycling more. And 65% of people support building those tracks, even if that means taking some space away from car traffic as well. So the scheme that we're talking about today, this really makes permanent some of the temporary measures that we put in last year under the Emergency Active Travel Fund, and sort of makes them into more of a permanent scheme. It's the dotted purpley line, if you can see that on the plan. So from the city centre, which is bottom right on the plan, going out into the Jewellery Quarter on Newhall Street, Graham Street, it starts on Graham Street and goes up to the Ring Road, crosses the Ring Road, Icknield Street, across to Hingerston Street, and then works its way through some of the back streets around Capstone Avenue, comes out on Dudley Road, quite near the City Hospital, Clissold Passage it's called, which is by the little canal bridge on the Soho Loop Canal. It then connects to further measures are being looked at on Dudley Road itself. We have a widening scheme on Dudley Road, which originally was like a dual carriageway for traffic, but has now been changed so that it's much more friendly for walking, cycling and public transport as well. So there will be further links from the route that we're talking about today up to the City Hospital and further up Dudley Road towards the local centre, towards Winston Green, and also onto the canal at Northbrook Street. There is an existing canal access at Northbrook Street as well. It also connects to some of the new housing developments which are going on along the Dudley Road corridor as well. This plan shows how it connects into broader cycle routes over quite a wide area. So you've got things like the routes already on the canal, some of the backstreet routes which already exist, and some of the routes into the city centre. So although it looks a relatively short route that we're talking about here, it does connect to wider things. It does particularly connect the sort of Dudley Road, Winston Green area into the city centre. And you can see there, this is like a longer term plan, so you can see over time how the network develops, how we want the network to develop and get further links into things like places like Handsworth, places, things like some of the metro stops, where hopefully when the trams are running again, that you get better links to public transport and the train stations in the Jewellery Quarter as well. These are just a few photos of the some of the temporary measures that went in last year. You can see the sort of orange bollards, or wands as we call them, which are currently protecting cyclists. So that's the kind of thing that we want to improve to make it look more permanent, with proper curbs and things like that. We've got some temporary build outs for bus stops and bus borders, things that we want there, certainly things that we want to improve as well, to try and help sort of minimise conflicts between cyclists and people boarding and alighting from buses. So that's a bit of an overview. So now I'll hand over to Melissa Peck. She's from Jacobs Consultants, and she'll talk through the actual proposals in a bit more detail.
Thanks, Andy. Share my screen. So I'll start at the southern end of the scheme, which connects onto the A457 Dudley Road Improvement Scheme, which does have a cycle facility going down Dudley Road onto Spring Hill. Now, as mentioned, we will connect onto Clissold Passage and provide a segregated cycle route parallel to the existing footpath. We'll achieve this by widening out into the grass verge to achieve a sufficient width cycle track, whilst maintaining a sufficient footway width. We'll also connect onto the existing tow paths at the two locations shown to allow cyclists to gain access. I'll continue through. As we get onto Clissold Street, we will introduce a segregation unit, which will separate the cyclists from the running carriageway lane. At this location, the cycleway will be at the carriageway level, so we'll be stepped down from the footway. We continue along Clissold Street, which makes the existing pop-up route with the bollards / wands permanent by introducing the segregation unit. As we get to Capstone Avenue, we then direct cyclists onto the carriageway using the advisory carriageway facilities. That will continue on to Knightstone Avenue, where we then direct cyclists onto Kingston Street, where we have with flow cycle track. This again follows the same alignment as the existing pop-up scheme. All we intend to do is make this permanent by again introducing the segregation unit, which is a curbed unit, which will separate cyclists from the parallel running lane. And this will be again at carriageway level, so we'll be stepped down from the footway. When we get to the bus stop locations, we intend to improve this from the existing pop-up route by widening out the footway to give sufficient width for the bus stop and shelter or bus flag, and direct cyclists behind the bus stop back onto the carriageway. As we get to Ignell Street, we intend to upgrade the southern traffic crossing, signal crossing to Toucan. This will allow cyclists to cross with pedestrians. We then get to Carver Street, which again we are intending to improve the existing pop-up scheme by introducing the segregation unit and have a two-way cycle lane running along Carver Street. We will keep the, as shown on the screen, the northern car bays as is, so they will remain in place. We then get to the Albion Street junction, which is just this junction here, where we have the cyclists travelling inbound into the city centre will run with the traffic as it is in one direction, and coming outbound they'll be segregated from the carriageway with a unit. That will continue until we get to Newhall Street, where again the cyclists going inbound will stay with the carriageway running lane, but it will become two ways on the carriageway. The cyclists coming outbound can still use the segregated track running parallel. The route will then end at Newhall Street, where cyclists are directed to use the existing cycle facilities on carriageway. The only additional thing I have to mention here is that the blue surfacing or the blue image shown on the screen is for illustration only. Birmingham has still to decide what will be the final image, but just to differentiate from the carriageway, it is shown in blue. Back to you, Andy.
Thank you, Melissa. I will just share one last slide. So if you want to make any see the plans in detail again, or make any more detailed comments, then Be Heard website, if you search on there for the A457 cycle route. You can also email any queries to us through our inbox at connected@birmingham.gov.uk. And we're also doing a drop-in session in the Jewellery Quarter area Thursday next week. That's the 25th of November between 4 and 7 p.m. That's at the Ramgaria Community Centre. It's 15 Newhall Hill. It's Newhall Hill near the junction of Graham Street, near the Sikh Temple, and some of us will be there for that. We're separately consulting on other cycle routes through the Active Travel Fund programme as well, on Bradford Street in the Digbeth area, and out on the A45 corridor to Small Heath, as well as a connection to Moseley from the Cannon Hill Park and Cricket Ground area. All those consultations are also on the Be Heard portal, and you can also get links to all of the consultations on the City Council's website. That's at www.birmingham.gov.uk/ATF cycle routes. Okay, I'll leave that on screen if I can. If there are any questions, then if Alex or Sophie can read those out if anything's come in.
No, we haven't got any questions, Andy.
No. Okay. If there's no questions, then I'll leave that slide up. We'll just say thanks everybody for joining us this evening. Have a good evening, and look forward to receiving comments. Thank you very much.